Okay, so this time we have enough knowledge to actually try out a actual Linux system. So in here, rest assured, we will not be installing anything yet. We are just going to take a look at the system by running the setup. So we're going to run the installer, create a bootable USB, run the installer, and then without installing it on our system, we'll just take a look at how it behaves right from the USB stick or the pen drive itself. This just makes sense. Okay, now if yes, then let's go ahead. For this case, I'm using Fedora for this because it's a good beginner friendly distro, I believe, and it should give us ample working grounds for testing out actual Linux system. So now I've searched Fedora in Google, which gives us the official Fedora website, the Fedora project.org. Make sure it's fedoraproject.org. Move in, and we are greeted with the first thing is it's your operating system. If this line doesn't make sense, it's because Windows doesn't let you use or access the whole of your operating system, but Linux is not like that. It's completely free in the sense you can modify it, tweak it, swap out individual parts with whatever you like, find community resources, create your own, whatever you want basically. So that in that sense it is called completely your own operating system. Basically it's completely your own. So that tagline is being used by Fedora also to indicate it's your operating system, and 100% free and open source. Of course, Fedora is free. I mean, as in also in monetary terms, financial terms. So you don't need to purchase Fedora. There are Linux distributions which you have to purchase support for example, Red Hat, but most of the general Linux systems are actually free. So Fedora has multiple variants. Let's look at brief about this. So Fedora Workstation, Fedora Plasma Desktop. These two are for your regular desktop application, desktop system. So you can get a proper GUI thing and everything. It's the most common use if you want to try out Linux system, and these two are the most probable one. It's the more recommended one. Then comes the server, which this is for manual server system. If you want a more without the GUI system, and then you can configure it with whatever you like. Then this is a similar thing for running in the cloud environment. Then this is for container. If you don't know what a container is, don't worry, don't need to right now. Sorry, I just and then this is an IoT solution which is running in, quite possibly I have not taken a look into this. Maybe this will be, you can basically run it on Raspberry Pi Zero or something, maybe, and other IoT devices. It's the leanest possible system, hopefully. And the container, obviously, if you don't know container, then we can skip this part. This is not going, we are not going to need this anyway soon. So now we can install anything from server, workstation, or the KDE Plasma Desktop. This doesn't have a GUI. You get just the terminal. This is also good for our testing, but for now, simple uses, let's choose between one of these two. So Fedora Workstation and Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop. So these two, there is the only differences is the mostly the difference is between look and feel of these two. The core Fedora operating system, the Fedora OS is the same, and obviously both of them share the same Linux. In fact, all of these share the same Linux, albeit some different with different configurations. So the first, if you want to think of it, let's think about it this way. Like let me show you something. This will give you a. I'm on my own system now. Just trying to show you something. So this is, let's say this is Linux. This is Linux. This is the actual Linux. Then comes your OS, which is on top of it. It contains many other things. This is your OS. Let's color it this one, and this is OS. So Linux is this one. OS. Let's move this out of here and maybe here. This is the OS, which you can think of it like Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, Arch, or whatever basically. Let's do in Gentoo as well. So anything you pick up, all of these has the same Linux. This is the actual part which talks to the hardware. So if you add a bit of, let's say this is a hardware part, let's say this is hardware, and let's color it something like this, maybe this one. So this is the only part which is talking. This is what is interacting with the hardware, and hardware means obviously RAM, CPU, your disk, other peripherals like camera and everything, keyboard, mouse, obviously. Anything that you're connected into the system, any hardware, Linux is actually handling this. And of course it's also handling the processes, and like if you are running multiple processes, how Linux is ensuring how much time each process is going to get, how multitasking is handled. Everything is, this is being handled by Linux. And operating system like this one, but this gives you a interface and some interface on top of Linux. So one so like OS gives you something like, let's say, the interface which is on top of it. And obviously the now interface doesn't just mean, I'm not using the interface in the sense of how the look and feel of this. I'm not talking about just the look and feel. I was talking about how you interact with the system. So how you interact with the system. So this could mean shell or shell programs, like like we talk about ls, cd, mkdir, the commands that we took a look at in our last video. Those programs also are not part of Linux. They communicate with Linux to get you the details, but these programs are not exactly part of Linux. These has to be provided by some other packages or other project. And then obviously your desktop look, we call it, it's called desktop environment. Then your service manager, like how your services, like what services are automatically started. Like if you are in Windows, you might have seen your service list, which show you all the different services which are running in background, helping you and managing all the systems for us. That service manager is also part of the interface, part of the OS. Actually, the service manager might not be a part of interface. Actually, it's separate. Service manager, desktop environment is obviously definitely a part of this. So now you might be thinking, why this? I'm just listing out all this. That is because Windows or Mac OS generally don't give you an option on this. You don't have to think about what shell program you need and desktop environment you need, because there is only one option, and that comes along with Windows or along with Mac OS. But since Linux is open source and it's made in a composable way, so people like us, or anyway, we can basically switch out, pick and choose between individual programs, individual groups of programs, to create our own interface and create our completely own system. Now, if you think choosing individual things is a bit of a pain, or it takes too much effort, that is why projects like Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, Arc or Gentoo exist. These basically do the pick and choose part for you, and since there are different options available for different desktop environment, there are different options available, like for example GNOME or KDE. Of course, there are many more. I'm just taking these two as an example, because these are the two options which Fedora provides, and we are going to install. We are going to use Fedora for this example. So these two are the desktop environment. This look and feel of the desktop, how the applications look, and what are default programs that comes with it, and how everything that is look and feel like. Whenever even if you like open a folder, the file open dialog shows up. This one, for example, I'm using Hyperland, but this part is from GNOME. The look of this is actually governed by the desktop environment. And of course, like I'm doing it here in my system, I can even desktop environment can also be created, composed individually. You can say, okay, which compositor I want, or you can choose. We can basically create our own DE. Create our own DE by choosing, choose portals, screen lock applications, etc., and everything, and a window manager, compositor, portal, screen lock, everything. If you want to choose them, so we can even go beyond the desktop environment and create our own. And if you're thinking these are like too much of effort, rest assured, people go into these things. It's not like a completely left alone for programmers anymore. So people actually go ahead and to create their own DB, not actually create in the sense pick parts and integrate, So create doesn't mean you program a new desktop environment. Of course, you can do that as well, but when people say they're using their own configuring their own DAD or creating using their own DAD, most of the time they means they pick out the individual parts like window manager, compositor, photos, Kindoc applications, and many more, and configuring them together to create their own desktop experience, desktop environment. Service manager, of course, they are run it system D, which is the one of the most popular one. Then you have OpenRC. I don't know many of I don't have much knowledge about many of them, but there are many. So you can choose this one or this one or this one or many more. And then shell programs, of course, the basic programs. Of course, there are things called GNU project, which provides the whole set of applications that you regularly need. Or you can go to BusyBox, which also provides another the whole package. So they are basically at every stage and every part of the whole of it. Every component can be picked, and you can pick and choose basically whatever we like. But most of the time, generally people don't like to choose each and every one of them, or they or they like what is being provided by Fedora, Debian, or Ubuntu, and many more. So they choose one of them and stick with it. So this is when you say OS that's why you might have heard the term Linux is not an OS, it's just a kernel. Linux is a kernel, not an OS. So that is why it's so because this is just this contains actually it contains the hardware. It allows accessing hardware resource manager, let's call it hardware manager. I don't know if manager is the right word, but I believe you understood what I meant. It lets us access the hardware, and of course process. The proper term is scheduler, but you can think of it as manager as well. It basically handles the processes, so that not if one process hangs, it doesn't hang the whole system. How much time that each process need to take, and all of this. So there are many things, and of course I/O scheduler as well, like how and when network the input output happens, and many more stuff, which are the core part of the kernel. And together with this is like how the system is hardware and resources are used, and this is the OS, or the interface part actually decides how you use that Linux, how you use that system. And together this can in Windows world, when we say OS, we mean the whole thing. Windows also has a kernel, it's called anti-kernel, I believe. I might be sharing all the information, so don't quote me on that. But everything in there is a kernel, and there are these parts which are generally separate. But in Windows or macOS part, most of the time it's created in such a way that you cannot swap out individual parts, or there is little to no control over these. But Linux being free and open, it provides you the access to change any of this. And even if you are competent enough, if you are a programmer and know how Linux works. You can even modify this part as well. You can even modify Linux as well. So, but since and run your own copy of Linux, which is a modified version, or at the very least, you can also configure Linux to as to your liking. So everything is possible. So this is basically how when the two things relate, Linux and the OS. OS is also term, most of the time it's also called as this distribution or distro, basically for short. It's a short form of distribution. So basically it's called a distribution because it's not creating, most of the time it's not creating anything new. It's basically combining and picking and choosing different parts, like picking the Linux, configuring it for a particular architecture or thing, and then choosing the interface, choosing specific programs, choosing the specific service managers, and many other programs. Additional application utility programs are also provided. Default applications are also provided. So, and more. This is not an exhaustive list. There are many more parts to it, but the whole thing is, when you choose a distro, you are basically choosing Linux. This part is the same. Then over this, these are the things that you are basically. It's like saying, okay, I don't want to choose each and every program. I let Fedora do the picking, and I will use whatever Fedora provides. So now in this list, Ubuntu it's not supposed to go in this list because Ubuntu is a derivative of Debian. So Ubuntu, the company Canonical, which provides Ubuntu, actually took Debian, which is an OS distro, and then modified some parts of it to create its own identity, which is Ubuntu. Similarly, Arc is the actual is one of the actual distribution. Then people took Arc and created Manjaro over it, Casio OS over top of it. So these or Endeavor OS, and people take Gentoo. I don't know if there are any derivatives of Gentoo, but Gentoo is also is not a derivative of anything. So Fedora, Debian, Arc, Gentoo, these are not a derivative of other distros. So, and there could be many more, but I'm choosing the most popular ones here. So most of the time when you see Linux Mint, which is also based on Ubuntu, and which is again Ubuntu again is based on Debian. So when you if you want to choose a system for you, most probably I would recommend you to use Fedora, although I am personally using Arc, but I would not recommend Arc to the beginner. Instead you go with Fedora possibly, or if you want you can also choose Ubuntu, or I don't recommend Ubuntu though. Maybe you can choose Linux Mint. Yeah, Linux Mint you can choose, or if you are okay with configuring things or fixing things personally when things go wrong, you can choose some derivative of Arc, like Casio OS or Casio OS or Endeavor OS. But keep in mind, Arc and Arc derivatives, it will work whenever, most of the time. But if you need something to configure, or like if something at any point, if something goes wrong, most of the time you would need a more in-depth knowledge of the Linux, how systems interact, to actually fix this. I'm not saying that Debian might not go wrong or Fedora might not go wrong. Of course, Debian is much less likely to go wrong, because it's a very much it's targeted for stability. So this Debian might it's less likely to go wrong, but that doesn't mean the other parts that are a part of Debian might always go wrong. Like if you run Debian with let's say Cinnamon desktop, then that the configuration might go wrong, and then you have to fix it. But most of the time, for beginners, these things like Fedora Debian would be much easier than Arch or Gentoo. Nix OS. Nix is also one, and Void Linux is also, if I remember correctly, these two are also not derivative of any other OS, other existing distro. But for now, as a beginner, I would recommend you to choose Fedora. And once you get familiar with the concept, because anyway inside everything, everyone, even with Nix OS for Linux Gentoo and everything, the core Linux is the same, and these commands would be same unless you do like real modifications, and you want to make your life a pain and you create something completely different. But generally these programs are the same, which means the terminal behaves mostly the same. So it doesn't matter if you understand Fedora well enough, then you basically understand Linux well enough, and at that point you can basically choose whatever derivative you want to create, or you can actually create something like your own distro if you really choose. So there is nothing, you shouldn't feel like if I'm choosing Fedora, I'm basically missing out on what Arch provides or what Gentoo provides or Debian provides. You can create your own distro after you understand how the Linux and the distro basically work, how things combine, how things are configured together to work together. Once you understand the working, and then you can basically choose from any other Linux distro, or you can, if you feel like Fedora is actually what you really need, really like, you can also keep using Fedora, or you can create a completely pick and choose your own part and create your own distro, whatever makes you feels right at the time. As for beginners, just stick with the Fedora for now, and let's proceed. Okay, so now we are back on Fedora. These two are these two from the discussion we just had, these two mostly the differences between differences of the look and feel or the desktop environment. These features GNOME desktop environment, and this one has KDE. You can choose any of them. For now, you are going to use Fedora, the KDE version, and go to download page. And most you might need x86 64 systems. This means you are running a 64-bit processor from Intel or AMD. These are much more less common systems, but these do exist. The ARC64, which is basically meaning ARM processors. These are, you might have this if you brought it Snapdragon computer or laptop, then you might have this, and most of the time you'd not be having this. And of course this is I'm quite certain the general person using Windows would not be having this, because Windows doesn't run on this system. If you are running like if you have bought your Windows laptop very recently and it's a Snapdragon or Qualcomm laptop, then, or a Windows Surface Book, this might be the case. So make sure you but for most system, this would be the system, this would be the operating system, and this would be the version that you need. Now if you want to check this, you go to Windows, click on this PC, go to properties, hit this properties, and this system about section obviously, and then system type, you'd see this line 64-bit operating system, x64 based processor. If you see this line x64 based processor, then of course you would have to use this this version. So you go ahead and download this thing. I have already downloaded it, and obviously to install create a USB stick, we'll use Fedora Media Writer. There are many other applications. If you know them, how to use them, then you can go ahead. For now we are going to use this one because this is part of the same website. There is no other reason I'm using this Fedora Media Writer. Make sure you choose Windows and Mac version. Click on download. Then this should be a different looking website. Don't check GitHub release page, but then you need to check this one. Whatever you choose, I recommend this one, but choosing this also works. So I have already downloaded it, and I have also connected my USB stick into my machine. So let's go ahead and create our bootable USB stick. So this might come up when you are running first time, or you might see a different type of blue screen also, blue dialog saying you cannot. There is only one option saying ignore this thing. You have to click on more info and then choose run anyway. But then once you're done, Fedora Media Writer Microsoft Visual C++ is not installed. Okay, this is required. So let's go ahead to download this. If you are using your system for some time and you do some programming work, this installation might not be required. I mean, the Visual C++, Microsoft C++ redistributable, this might already be installed. But if you don't have it installed, I recommend you install this one. Close. Then Firefox Media. This is the actual setup of the Firefox Media Writer. Install this. Okay. Take some time. Run Fedora Writer. Okay, download automatically. We don't need to download automatically because we have an ISO file already. We downloaded it from here. By clicking this, we downloaded it, and we already have this thing. So we select the ISO file next, and we select the file. Go to downloads, and Fedora Live, and this is already selected, and we click on write. And make sure you don't have anything on the pen drive which you don't have a copy of. So if that's not the case, if you have something important on your USB stick, you need to copy those things first into your hard disk. So that because the whole pen drive would be erased after this. And once you have copied everything, click on write. And it will start writing the USB stick. Now since I'm using it via virtual machine, this might take more time, but in your system it's supposed to take around something like 15 minutes or so. I don't, it might take less, it might take a bit more. It's assured everything to get things working. Okay, everything seems to have written. Now it is checking the written data. It's basically confirming whether the written data is exactly the same as what has been used, right? Basically making sure no error has crept in while writing the image, the ISO file. Make sure don't cancel it. Great. Once this zone is finished, we can actually go ahead and eject the drive. Okay, it's already ejected. Now we can basically boot into this drive, this USB stick drive. If you don't know how to boot into your USB, you can actually search this thing. In basically, what you need to do is you need to press, based on your motherboard manufacturer, you might have to press different keys, but most of the time it's either escape or delete or F2, and then you will get into BIOS setup. There you would see a boot menu. You have to go into the boot menu, and then you can take a look at any of this thing. This actually makes sense. This is the type of screen that we'll be seeing here. Just if I can show it here, maybe. Yes. So if you take a look at this image, this is most a general view of how it might look like. So there could be multiple tabs. You might have to use your arrow keys because mouse might not work, although for newer systems there is a mouse based UI as well, and you might also see something like this one. So basically you have to make sure the first option is not Windows, the first option is the USB thing, and make sure the second option is Windows. It should automatically pick up once you update the priority 1. The number 2 should already be Windows. If not, make sure the second option is Windows, so that when you want to boot into Windows, it doesn't you don't have to change anything after that. This is how a normal thing, also older system might look like. So hard drive, CD-ROM, and removable device. This might mean a USB stick. So USB stick needs to be above the hard drive. Or you can actually follow, if you still unsure, you can actually follow a video like this one, and it will show you how to do this.